have everybody here with us this morning. This is our work session of the Scott County Fiscal Court for December 5th, 2025. If you all would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Let's pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Shared by email some basic agenda for items that we wanted to discuss yesterday, and I've had two changes. We'll hear at another date from Char Williams and update on the Farmers Market Pavilion. She had some conflicts. And then Mary Safe Haven will come at another date as well to give us a net device participant testimony. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to lead off with Holden Fleming and share just some drafts and a start for really a talking points about two items. And one item is an ADU, accessory dwelling unit amendment, and the other is looking at changes or amendments to the rural cluster development ordinance. And the whole point of this, and this comes from our work last fall and last winter into last spring, looking at preserving prime farmland in Scott County and addressing that concern. And we had, I think, holding 6 public meetings over the course of that time. And from those meetings, the low-hanging fruit we're looking at the ADU possible amendment, and then looking at any changes to the rural cluster development that amendment or ordinance that could positively impact the issue. And you know, the concern is what's been shared is that the 5-acre tract is negatively impacting farming, and I've shared data about that number. If you look from 2010 to 2024, Whitley with planning and zoning has shared a comparison map, and I've shared that map with you all on more than one occasion. But just on a holistic look, from 2010 to 2024, there was a reduction in 1% of A1 zoned parcels. Now, when you break down those parcels by size, the biggest change is the 5-acre the 5-acre category. So, you know, what could we do that would be a positive between that, you know, so in 10 years when we look back, possibly that number has been reduced over that time period of 10 years. So that's the whole process, and this is just really a starting point of a conversation, and I really appreciate Holden and the team, Rhett, in their work on trying to, you know, start this conversation and move it forward. So any questions before Holden starts? Holden, thank you.
Fiscal Court, glad to be here. So I've prepared a really brief presentation to kind of talk us through some of these documents. And so I hope you've all had a chance to review them. We're going to start with the accessory dwelling units ordinance. So just some key points is, number one, we did talk about this several months ago, I believe back in August. And so relatively minor changes since then. This is really probably the document that's closest to being actionable. Judge Covington said this was born out of the ag stakeholders group, but right as soon as that got started, we also had something about RVs come up. And so the RV ordinance kind of took precedence. We wanted to get that taken care of and addressed first. So now that that process is finished and we have an ordinance on the books, it's time, I think, to pick up these other ordinances and start looking at changes if and where they should be made. And so the first one for these accessory dwelling units, I wanted to just kind of walk through kind of what the layout would look like, and then maybe some of the benefits that would provide for us. So the first thing to understand is these accessory housing units, you basically get one per parcel. If you've got 5 acres and you've already built a house on there, then you would be eligible for an accessory dwelling unit. Again, you might hear these as granny flats or a couple other terms, but ADUs is the one that we like to utilize. An accessory dwelling unit is always going to be smaller than the primary dwelling unit. So we have metrics inside of here that basically what we're trying to do is ensure that this accessory dwelling unit is incidental and subordinate to the primary dwelling. So it's going to be smaller. If it fronts on either a state or a county road, only one doorway can face the frontage. It's got to share a driveway. That shared access is really important too. When we look at our rural road networks, we don't want to be adding in extra driveways all over the place. Shared water connection. And then the other good thing about accessory dwelling units is this is kind of a tried and true thing that's been tested out elsewhere in the country. We can look around and see that these have been used successfully to help address one of the issues in providing housing for a community. It's really important to note, though, that there's going to be no silver bullets, whether we're talking about the preservation of farmland or if we're talking about having more options for providing housing in our rural communities. There's not ever going to be one solution. And so the idea is to take a look at these among a suite of options so that we can find ones that work best for the individual resident in our community. And so I want to just pause right there. And if you guys have any specific questions related to accessory dwelling units as they've been drafted or any specific changes. The last time I was here, there were questions related to specific design standards. Again, from a planning office, we normally want to try to stay out of those types of questions. If there's an HOA in place, HOAs are really good at enforcing that kind of stuff. Planning office is a little less so. But yeah, you could very easily add in a sentence that there have to be similar design elements between the primary structure and the accessory structure. Of course, as soon as you do that, that basically ensures that every ADU that you're going to get built is pretty much going to have to be custom to that property, versus if you keep it more general, there are some kind of pre-made plan sets or almost like modular products, not mobile homes, modular products that have kind of fit into the ADU market nationwide. And so that's one thing to consider. The other one that I think is really important is this code, as it's written, requires an owner occupancy requirement. So if you own the land and you want an accessory dwelling unit, you either have to live in the primary dwelling or the accessory dwelling. What we don't want is for someone who wants to rent their property. And if they want to rent their house, that's great. But we don't want somebody double dipping, where they own the property and they're able to get 2 rental units off of a single lot. A lot of times when communities have concerns about ADUs, it's that it'll be used as a rental and then it'll go downhill and it'll impact the neighborhood's quality or character. By ensuring that property owner has to live somewhere on site, that hopefully will take care of a lot of those issues, because the person who's going to be most impacted is the person living right next door.
I think, Master Wallace, you shared just that concern about the character of the primary residence and then the accessory dwelling unit matching. If it's in an existing neighborhood, I think is really more of the concern, but it being matching the character of the other existing residences and not being something that sticks out like a sore thumb. I mean, I don't know how else to say it, but do you want to comment on that?
It's very hard to legislate aesthetically complementing the existing residents, and you're also not doing anything that's going to upset the adjacent properties as well. And you referenced a sentence that maybe we could add in there. Now, if you made them all stick built, then that would probably eliminate that discussion. But I don't think that is probably practical, especially when the state has kind of moved toward allowing these pre-manufactured tiny homes. You can roll them in and,
Yep.
you know, and put them right there.
So, tiny homes is kind of a loose term. It can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But it's staff's opinion that if it's like if it's one of those park models, those are designed for RV parks and are not typically designed for permanent habitation. And so I don't think that is, when we're talking about ADUs, what we should be looking at. Mm-hmm. Now, again, when it comes specifically to writing aesthetic standards, there's two things that we have to be aware of. Is number one, since June, all of the standards that we adopt have to be able to be applied ministerially without discretion. And so if we want to, talk about specific aesthetic standards and requirements, we can do that, but it'll be limited in scope because we can't, have as staff discretion on that. On the other side, the state of Kentucky did just modify its requirements for mobile homes. Many counties had adopted aesthetic standards related to mobile homes. The state of Kentucky came in and said, these are the only ones that you can dictate, and only if they're applied equally between mobile homes and stick-built homes. And so we could try to mirror the language that the state provided for this. Or actually, I like your idea, just say it's either got to be modular or stick-built. And when I'm talking modular, I'm talking about, prefab pieces that are moved on-site and then assembled as if it were stick-built. That might take care of the issues as well.
And then one question I have, like, because of topography or location of the water line, sometimes if you're building this accessory dwelling unit, it might not be feasible to tie in to the same water line. Am I in left field there?
No.
What would be the problem with them having 2 meters? Is that
the idea there is you really are trying to make sure that the 2 units are connected. By sharing that 1 meter, that's a pretty good way to do that.
no?
The other thing that we have here is one of the requirements is that primary dwelling in ADU no more than 300 linear feet from each other. I mean, that's a football field. So if there are instances where either because of topography or other extenuating circumstances you can't do that, that is a perfect example for a variance.
Okay.
And the problem, not the problem, actually, the benefit to that is that we're going to write a broadly applicable set of standards that work for 95% of Scott County. If they don't, then we get to take that review and it goes to your Board of Adjustment, and they can verify that there are those extenuating circumstances that create that issue. And again, I think that's important too, to preserving or protecting that community character.
Any other questions? Kelly Corman.
So, if there's an HOA and it has in their guidelines 1 residence per property,
Mm-hmm.
we can split hairs and say it's not really a residence got to connect. I mean, it's an accessory dwelling unit.
Sure.
Would this supersede or the HOA?
So we don't enforce HOA requirements, but in that circumstance, that would be between the property owner and their HOA to be sorted
Probably
out.
have to go to court to figure that out.
That's what I'm guessing. I mean, it's. I think it's an interesting thing to think about because you could have a lot of people in that neighborhood in the HOA say they don't want it.
And
one
that's
person-
okay.
And one person come in and say they do want it because they want to put their kids behind them.
Sure.
And
If you move there, you're subject to the restrictive covenants, and if the HOA wants to enforce that, they take them to court.
And then the other question would be, if you have an HOA, and 20 years ago when it was written, they didn't envision this, now they want to go back and add it, I wonder if that would probably just be another legal question if they,
Whatever requirements that HOA has for adopting new regulations would probably govern that. It'd have to be probably a HOA vote. You agree?
I think so, but it's, I don't know.
Aren't a lot of these, though, not going to have
Yeah, I think-
realistically, you're not going to have HOAs in a lot of these situations.
Maybe rural.
Yeah, I think the main point, I think Holden's already made it, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the issues you're talking about, if there's an HOA, that's where that's at. It's not really with P and Z, right?
We don't want it to be with the intent.
No.
Well, I mean, it's not.
Yeah.
If the HOA's not, they're not coming to you to go, hey, we're gonna write our HOA up, right? Or vice versa. So you're really separated. It's,
Some of the things I've read about, nationwide and
I
other
mean, am I
cities,
right about that?
I mean, there's a, it seems to me that some people have property rights and that might supersede, and I don't know if it's a court issue or what, but, if we pass something like this, we're wanting to make it available. And there's gonna be a lot of subdivisions, like Dwayne was saying, that don't have an HOA, which I think then, it is what it is. That's what you have to decide if you want to allow it or not.
So I can't find it. I think I've read it somewhere, but
And I'm not-
what is the minimal, like if I own an acre, can I do this? If I own a half acre, can I do this? What's the minimal?
I thought he said 5.
I believe it's 5 acres.
It's got to be at least 5 acres, right?
Yeah, yeah, because
Okay.
it's got to be a legal, or I think we might allow for others, if they have a legal lot of record and they can demonstrate that they can meet the other requirements. I'll go back through.
What's that mean? What do you mean?
Well,
So prior to 1972, the county didn't have zoning.
Okay.
And so there could have been a lot that was legally created prior to that, that was
Gotcha,
smaller
okay.
than 5 acres.
Okay.
We actually just had a variance last night where somebody wanted to build a house, so the primary, but they had less than 5 acres, and so they were tight on their setbacks. It's a legal lot, they have rights. In this circumstance, though, because this is kind of like in addition to, you'd want to make sure there's extra protections to make sure that you're not, again, doing something you don't want to do. But 5 acres would be the standard.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? You care to comment on the, I was looking at the draft, and there's a section on recording a
Notice the title?
notice of title, and just, can you talk about the thought there, and with that, was the idea that would bind future owners of the property to those same requirements?
That's exactly correct. So again, we want to join the primary and the accessory together. The intent of this is to not create a pseudo subdivision or allow for that accessory dwelling unit to be sold separate from the rest of the property.
Okay.
Now, in the event that, if you're 300 feet away and you've got 10 acres, there's no reason why you couldn't just come in and apply for a secondary dwelling unit, residential unit. And then at that point, you're not subject to these accessory dwelling units. That's an entirely different thing. You get a full house, different water meters. There's other options. But if you're on 5 acres or you don't have that ability to subdivide, we want to be very clear that this is a package deal.
And is this modeled, I assume it's probably modeled off an ordinance or something that's
Yeah.
other places that
Yep.
you've seen?
Yeah. Actually, I wrote this ordinance and it would be.
Where you were prior? You
Yeah.
prior?
Rob, did you have a question?
Yeah, so that was going to be one of my questions. It says, if I'm reading it right, that the ADU has to be a legally separated plat.
Oh, no, it should not be.
I thought that's what I'm reading.
It should be.
I'm not sure what I'm reading.
It should be on its own, like it needs to be on the same
Parcel.
parcel.
Says the accessory housing unit is legally subdivided from the remainder of the property pursuant to local regulations.
Where's that at? Point me to it.
Subsection 4, right toward the end, it's on the second page, the top of the second page that you passed down.
Up here at the top of this page.
I just need to flip that then.
So I was wondering why we're going to make them separated if we're not separating the water meter.
Demonstration. Oh, wait, hold on.
I'm reading it wrong or something.
That's, well, the sense above. Said registration may only be removed upon demonstration to my office that the accessory housing unit has been lawfully removed from via a subdivision. So if you came in and got an accessory dwelling unit and you had more than 10 acres.
That's what you're
And then
talking
in the
about.
future, you wanted to divide, you could only do that through a legal subdivision process. And that would remove that requirement. Again, why somebody would do that instead of getting a conditional use permit to do secondary residence, don't know. But because it could happen, we wanted to make sure that was still shown there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chad Wallace.
I think what you referenced about being stick-built or pre-manufactured will probably eliminate a lot of the complaints that I'm afraid that I would get and have gotten in other similar situations that you referenced that we need to add for these accessory dwellings.
I would like to point you again to the top of page 2 for structure type. And so right there, that first sentence talks about what can't be. I'd like to add another sentence that talks about what it can be. Would that suffice for the court?
Yeah.
But don't you think that
I think the stick
if we
built
stick
might-
to the minimum lot size of 5 acres, that's going to eliminate a lot of those concerns?
I mean, I've gotten 2 calls in the last 6 months about this, but both those people were building garage/accessory units. So I think that's what you're saying is that people that own 5 acres are going to kind of adhere to what's compliant.
What did you want to add?
So under the structure type section, it talks about what it shall not be: travel trailers, recreational vehicles, buses, truck storage containers, or similar manufacturing units which are not originally intended for permanent residence. And then at the end, I'm going to say accessory housing units shall be stick-built or pre-manufactured, designed for permanent habitation. And then probably something along the lines of pursuant to local building regulations.
Yeah.
Something along those lines that just makes sure it's really clear what it is we're looking for.
Any other questions? We move on to rural cluster. Is that what you were planning on doing?
That's correct. Okay, next slide. Okay, cluster development ordinance. Again, this came out of the Agricultural Stakeholders Committee. This is an interesting one. I'll jump down to the very last point there. We already have a local regulation that's currently adopted that deals with cluster developments. However, we heard all through the ag stakeholders meetings that it just doesn't pencil. Rhett, we talked to a person just the other day. The last time we did a cluster development was 2016. So we're 9 years later. This is not a tool that gets used very often. We're looking to make changes that way we can use it more often. One thing I want to point out before we move forward: the majority of Scott County is zoned A1 agricultural. In order to pursue this type of development and cluster development, the first thing you have to do is rezone to A5, which is a rural residential zone. And so we recognize right there that this is not something that's just going to happen right away. There's going to be a review process. You guys know all zone changes ultimately come before you guys. When we do that, we're going to review to make sure that there's an adequacy for the infrastructure, both roads as well as water, things like that. So the idea is that gets addressed up front. If it's a good spot for an A5, then we look at the rest of these requirements. One thing I want to point out that was discussed along the way with the Ag Stakeholders Group is that one of the reasons why the cluster development just doesn't get taken advantage of is because the ease of dividing off 3 5-acre parcels is so much easier than it is to go through the development process for cluster development, where you're required to put in a lot more infrastructure, more roads, more fencing. There's just a lot of requirements. And so, as we dig into this development, I would ask you not just to ask what other kind of requirements can we place on this, but are there places where we could remove a requirement, still meet our goal, but all of a sudden just make it one less kind of hurdle that a developer or our landowner, really is what we're talking about, have to get over to get us to this cluster development. Because unlike a standard subdivision where you just break it into 5s, this is a type of development that actually preserves acreage. And so the way that this draft is written, any cluster development, whatever the total parcel was at the start, 50% of it has to be preserved as one large tract. And there has to be a housing unit that's still associated with that tract. And the reason we do that is what we don't want to do is we don't want to basically give all of the development units away, have one large lot left over that nobody has to actually manage or take care of, and then all of a sudden, we fell behind in the taxes, you guys pick it up, there's no development credits left with it, and the county is now taking care of a parcel without a development credit. And so by connecting that last development right to that large tract, you have a great opportunity for somebody to own that land, own that large preserve, but it still gets to benefit those areas around it with, view sheds and such.
So so if you had 100 acres,
Yep,
you're gonna have 50, you could have 50 acres
preserved,
preserved, but on that preserved, you could still build one house.
correct. Yeah. So you're gonna end
Still,
up
or
with,
you have to, or you have the lot set up, but I guess you don't have to build.
yes,
Yeah,
yeah, it'll have the development right tied to it.
Okay.
That's at the discretion of whoever owns it to develop
Yeah,
it as
yeah.
they please.
There is no minimum acreage, correct? So if
No.
you had 20 acres and you just subdivided 4 2-acre lots, you have 8 acres, so you'd have 12. So you meet the 10-acre
Minimum for the preserve?
for your house, and you could
Yeah.
potentially sell 4 lots.
That's correct.
What do you think of that, Kelly?
I need to think about it some. I think about people
Not
with
putting you on the
20-acre
spot,
lots.
not-
Oh, no,
not
it
trying to
kind of
put you-
goes against what we're trying to do, which is like, and I get it, it helps housing. It gives somebody with 20 acres an option to sell 4 lots. But it also kind of defeats the purpose of trying to preserve green space and the fact that we've now got 4 more houses on 8 acres. Whereas I think if we had a minimum of, say, 100 acre, and I know you all have been in committees and talked about this a lot more than I have, but I've just now kind of had that thought.
So minimum size acreage is what you're leaning towards right now.
Well, I'm just thinking about it. I don't know.
Magistrate Corman, the one thing I would kind of, just mention there is if you had 20 acres right now, you could go and divide it into 4 5s and you'd preserve 0 acreage.
True.
Versus you sell the same 4 lots, you get to keep 10 acres, or actually 12, right? Maybe. And then you're really only going up 1 more housing unit. So we preserve more open space that everyone likes to drive past and look at and be next to. And in exchange for that is there's a total of 1 extra house, 1 extra, trip generating
That's a good
feature
point.
that's out there. And so it's just, again, that 10-acre minimum for the preserve, that can be modified, right? Maybe 20 acres. You just have to start with 40 acres, and that's what you get to. This is just a draft. Again, the thing to remember is maybe not what we're giving up in this, but what are we getting in return for allowing this type of development?
When you think about it that way, there is a significant savings, because you can do ag-related business on 10 acres, and it's done all over the place.
Sure.
Now, you get down to 5, we know the reality there, but
Right, 2 acres would be a really nice selling point in this county. I think there's a lot of people that like to have a 2-acre lot that don't want 5 acres, but like to live in the county. I could really see people with 20 acres with road frontage doing the 4, lots.
Yep.
And
Just to mention that, Kelly, while I was on planning and zoning for that 8 years, we had 1 person come and ask for the 1.75 acre lots for development.
for the cluster.
Yes, for that cluster.
But the old cluster, right, it was a lot more involved than what you could do here.
Yeah. I don't know that,
And I'm not saying I'm
the
against it,
2 acre
I'm
thing
just
is
thinking
gonna
it
work.
through.
Yeah.
and
I like the idea, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I like the idea.
But just in reality, if I have like my property, I'm close to 20 acres right now, not there, but say I was. And then I went down here and put some houses next to my neighbors that didn't think they were gonna have neighbors that close all of a sudden. Just something to think about.
Well,
So just buy some land off your neighbor there.
Don't worry about your neighbor.
So I'll touch on that just really quick. So obviously the smaller lot sizes is kind of how you're able to create those preserve areas. You got to find that acreage somewhere, and so the way to accomplish that is by making the minimum lot size smaller. Now, previously, working with Wedco, is 1.75 acres minimum. And then there was a maximum that wasn't much greater than either. There wasn't a lot of variety that you could have in these clusters. What this draft proposes, though, is that if you want to do 1.75, yes, we can process through preliminarily. Wedco feels comfortable with that. We can move forward with that. But what we've heard through our community is that it is potentially possible to put a septic and a reserve on less than 1.75 acres. And so what we've actually said is that the minimum lot size could go all the way down to half an acre if they've got perfect soils. What that requires is working with WEDCO up front to do site registrations and verify that the soils can support that, and that on whatever that tract is, there is enough room for that primary septic as well as the 100% reserve. And so in doing that, again, what we're trying to do is not increase the number of parcels in that situation, but be able to change what those parcels look like, because maybe 2 acres are selling real hot right now. Maybe there's a market for the smaller 1 acre tracts, and not making this document be kind of the limiting factor for that, but rather what are your soils, what kind of septic system can you put on. As we make these lots smaller though, it does increase the chance of, exactly like you said, you thought you were going to have maybe 2 neighbors on your west side, now you got 6. I could understand being a frustration. That's why it's important to remember that as soon as you rezone to the A5, there's certain buffering requirements for the A5 zone that already exist. And primarily what I'm talking about is you've got to have a 6-foot fence, 6-foot no-climb fence, with, it's like a board on top. What we're trying to do is we are trying to separate out these rural residential units from the true ag units that are next door. And so we can talk about what other buffering would be required to accomplish this. Remembering again, though, that as soon as you say you got to build the nicest fence in Scott County, that's going to limit the amount of people maybe who are interested in doing this. But if that's what it takes to protect the rural character while still allowing the flexibility, we just got to be able to look at a property owner in the eye and says, you're going to be selling a bunch of lots. You got to build the fence, and that's okay.
Good fences make good neighbors.
Maybe we make it 8 foot tall then.
No.
Judge, circling back to Kelly's comment about the minimum size, I was looking at some of the clusters I represent: Midway Estates, Stone Horse, Willowbrook, and it seems like most of them are.
Are you the cluster king?
I am the cluster king. I've got more subdivisions. And then we have also right across the streets from Stone Horse is Locust Grove, and they're a bunch of 5-acre tracts. And so it seems like that they're all about 50 acres was the minimum, how they were all clustered. So maybe we should kind of look at a minimum amount of land that would allow for clustering. I don't know if 20 acres is the minimum, but maybe it is. I'm kind of thinking about that, but the ones we've had so in the past have been about 50 acres or more.
That might even be worth looking at, going back and actually saying, what did those, do a little history and see just how big those parcels were.
Yeah. 2 of them were 50, and then 1 was 70.
What was the Matt Welch out on?
Winding Oaks.
That's bigger.
It was
I can't
close to 100.
remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's larger.
Yeah, it's larger.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If we had a little bit of that track record, maybe that'd help determine if we want to set
A minimum.
yeah.
Because one of the things you're trying to do is make it more appealing to developers and landowners to do it. So the more lots they put on there, the more profit they can make to get back the investment of the infrastructure and everything. So
Right.
that's the balance that he's trying to pull back from Winding Oaks
But they still share.
blueprint.
Yeah.
Try to get away from that because we haven't had one since then, right? That's the last one.
I believe so.
Still share one entry point.
So the way the language currently exists in cluster regulations is none of the cluster lots can exit directly out of the cluster development. And so they have to share internal access points, and yes, 1 point coming off. Obviously, as you get larger, you should be looking at multiple access points just from a fire safety perspective. But yes, yeah, the idea is we want them sharing entrance points. Again, for the same reason we don't want ADUs coming off everywhere, we don't want these small cluster lots just coming off everywhere. And that, again,
And
as
the
you drive
agriculture's
past.
generally in the back. They usually put the farms in the back, and I don't get complaints about tractors or, hay,
Sure.
combines and all that stuff. They just accept it.
Okay.
Are you allowed to have, I'm sure you're allowed to have a farm access anyway, right? I mean, like,
Yeah.
a gate. Yeah.
That ag exempt for,
Yeah.
I mean, Holden, wouldn't that be the case?
I would think so. The other thing that I want to be clear with the intent of this ordinance as it's drafted is what we don't want to do is create a cluster development. And then 5 or 10 years later, somebody says, well, we're going to recluster the preserve acreage that was there last time. And so we want to make sure that when somebody goes through and does the cluster, they get as many of their cluster lots as they want done and taken care of and really truly preserve the rest of that acreage. Now, there are certain circumstances where, maybe they just want to cluster off this little bit left, and they could have clustered off a bunch more, but they just wanted to just do this phase right now. And so the language that we have in here right now is that you can't do that second cluster unless it's consented to by, and it meets the original density requirement, right? Because we don't want to steal somebody's density just because they only took advantage of half of it up front. But we would need some sort of sign off on the plat by the original cluster lot property owners. We need to ensure that there's some mechanism to make sure that you're not buying into something that you think is finished and it says preserved on the plat. The neighbors see that it says preserved on the plat, and then 5 years later we find out, well, preserved doesn't really mean preserved. It means until we want it to
Phase
come
2
back.
is what it means.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we want to find language that can avoid that. This is on page 4. This is note T. That's where we're at right now. But this is, again, an area I think that we can improve upon. And how do we make sure that we really never go above the total number of cluster lots that were allowed, but at the same time not have phase 7B coming online 3 years after 7A.
Yeah. And do you envision next steps possibly being planning commission public meeting like into January, February?
So, Zach, would you skip to 2 slides ahead? Next steps.
Nice.
This fiscal court really has an option to take. So zoning text amendments like this can be initiated either by fiscal court or by the planning commission. Now, you guys have invested heavily in my staff and myself, and you've appointed some great planning commissioners. The planning commission is well adapted at forming language like this. We would be happy to take that on. And we could go through that public process, and we could have a hearing, and we could get you something very similar to what we did for the RV ordinance. The flip side to this, though, is that this is going to be a set of ordinances that only apply in Scott County unincorporated.
Unincorporated.
Yes. So if you guys wanted to initiate that, you guys be the host of that first public meeting and take that first public hearing for these drafts, then you would have that power. That would then go to Planning Commission for their vote and approval, and they would come back to you for the actual ordinance adoption then. But you could start the process.
What would be the pleasure of the court?
The zone change ultimately has to come back to us as well.
Correct. But, you all do a fantastic job of the process and communicating, and, I think, we'd all be engaged, but from my seat, you all, starting that process and hosting that and gathering additional public input, I think that's just kind of like what everybody's used to, and I think we'd get the best feedback if we stuck to that process. Rob, what do you all?
Seems like when y'all do have a event like that out there at the extension office,
Okay.
get good response.
And that's what we'll try to do. We'll try to plan for January, February.
End of January, 1st of February, give you time to get through the holidays, and then I think you said you wanted to tweak it just a little, the wording just a little bit more.
Yep. I've heard feedback for both, for the accessory dwelling unit. We'll take comment on that minimum acreage for the cluster. When I originally wrote this, and again, it's lots of iterations, things come and things go. But my original plan was to have that preserve acre be no less than 20, because the idea is you got 40 acres to start, 50 gets preserved. Just because, I don't know, 46 in my head for farm activities.
Maybe I'm breathing wrong, but like if you had 20 and you subdivided or you had 8 acres taken off, you still have 50%, right?
You could,
So I think 20 is almost the minimum, or it's getting close.
yeah,
Well, I think that's why, if you,
And that's the history piece that you're.
yeah. We'll take a look at that. We'll-
that would
Could,
help.
could
Yeah,
y'all
'cause there's not
share?
that many.
Could y'all share some history there too?
Yeah.
And then, you know, I think that would be good too. Rob?
So hold on, let me get this right. If I got 100 acres, I could take 50%, which is 50 acres, keep as farmland. 50 of it could be developed as this cluster.
Yeah,
And I could go down to a minimum of half an acre.
depending on your soils.
If it all perks and all
Yeah.
that stuff.
And,
right?
yeah, Wedco signs off and says, yeah, that's fine.
So it seems like we had this out at Eder Lane. You know, all those septic tanks failed out there. They had to go out and put sewer in out there. That would be my only concern with lots.
Where was that at?
Eder Lane, the county and the water company, that they were having failing septic tank systems, and GMWSS and the county paid for half, they paid
To go out there.
and.
How many years ago was that?
Oh, 20 years ago.
What-
I remember
what
being out there
contributed to
putting
that?
sewer in.
What contributed to that?
That's would be my only concern is why it happened and if the lot wasn't big enough or what. I know
Septic
you
was
said
on the
you had-
ground in people's backyards, and then Wedco came out there and did an investigation, and said you got failing septic tanks, multiple septic tank systems, and that's when they chose to run
But
sewer.
you said they have to have backup land.
They gotta have
for-
the septic system and then a 100% reserve area.
For
that
another.
if it fails,
Right.
So if you got the footprint of your leach field and everything, then sitting right next to it is that
Have to have
you have to have that identical footprint
Yeah.
to jump over if you had failure.
Yeah.
And I think that protects us.
Is that what's currently out at like Winding Oaks, the last cluster? Is that how
very
it's set
likely,
up?
yeah. So that 100% reserve thing, that's a Wedco requirement. And I would imagine that probably, Eder Lane might have predated that. I don't know. We'll do research.
I mean,
It would've,
Eder Lane's
yeah.
an older
Yeah, it would've.
subdivision. I just-
All right.
Okay. I'll move quick here. Zach, if you go back one slide, please.
Do you mind to put the slides up on the Zoom? Thank you.
Thanks, David. Sorry.
It just says mini clusters. Not taking anything away from your slide, but don't get all
Hey,
tore up.
these are just talking points. So the last thing that I want to talk about is in the conversation, Brett, can I grab that? In talking to the agricultural stakeholders community, one of the things that came up was this idea of a mini cluster. Now, I'm going to tell you, I do not have a draft code for this. This one's going to require some more work, and I've got some real concerns as they relate to basically circumventing the intent of our agricultural zones. With that said, the request for a mini cluster clearly points to the desire of the community to have more flexible housing options. And so I don't want to mischaracterize it, but the way it was originally pitched is if you've got 5 acres, why can't you just split that into 3 little houses, 3 little, was the idea that they would be owned as one, or is it the idea that they'd be owned separately? Do you remember? Something to figure out. But they would all share a driveway. But there's a lot of people with 5 acres that would want to be able to put some more houses on there. Now, I think the accessory dwelling unit kind of answers that. I've provided kind of this talking sheet, which are some of the questions we would have to work through if we wanted to pursue something like that.
And this was brought up by a citizen at
Yeah.
the meeting. And
Yeah. And it's one of those things too, if you've got 10 acres, you can come in for that secondary residence permit, or you can subdivide off and sell. But since 1992, 5 acres has been the minimum for Scott County. And so there's, I think, nearly 3,000 parcels in Scott County right now that are between 5 and 10 acres and don't have that ability to subdivide further. And so there's a lot of people who would like to be able to subdivide further. What that would look like, I think we'd need to be very intentional with. You've got to ask the question at that point, do you do that through a conditional use permit? Do you do it through a development plan? Do you require a zone change to the A5? And that's where I'm going to pitch something that, this is has not been kind of played out at committee yet. But we have an A5 zone on our books right now. That A5 zone has the exact same density and lot size as our A1 zone. 5 acre minimums, 1 dwelling unit per 5 acres. It may be worthwhile to look at the A5 zone to keep the same 1 dwelling unit per 5 acres, but allow that minimum lot size to be smaller. So that if somebody wanted to rezone to the A5 and do a subdivision, they could sell off or deed off or give to their kids acreages that are less than 5. So it's still required to have more than 10 acres to do the subdivision. But, you know, maybe that 10 acres becomes an 8 and a 2 instead of 2 5s. It's something, again, that I think the community should discuss. It would help create kind of that distinction between the A5 and the A1. And it might, again, be that answer for somebody wanting smaller lots. It doesn't really help the person who's already got 5. That's, again, where I'd push them to the accessory dwelling unit. But there's that 5 acre minimum was adopted in '92. It's been consistent since then. But we could take a look at what that looks like and how do we approach that? Maybe not with density, but with lot size. So those are all the, keep the mini clusters for consideration. If you've got feedback on that, please let me know. Otherwise, whenever we host that public meeting in January, that'll kind of be on the back end. Again, just more conversation around it without drafting any specific language for it, because I don't think there's been enough community conversation to have a clear direction.
I think it needs a lot more input and feedback. Yeah. And I think you agree, is cool. Well,
so that's the 3,000 parcels in Scott County that are between 5 and 10 acres.
So ran out of ink.
Yeah, no. So that's why, again, if you're talking about a mini cluster on 5 acres, that's where it would be. It'd be all over the county.
Between 5 and 10.
Yeah, cannot be further subdivided. Yeah, and I think it's like 2,900 and something, but close to 3,000.
Any other questions? Holden, Rhett, thank you all as always, and thanks for coming.
Thank you.
We'll move on now to Road Department CDL Safety Coordinator. This is a continuation from the court meeting. Come on up, JR. JR shared as well some literature from CAECO and just really trying, CAECO is encouraging counties to intentionally develop, more of a systematic approach to really staying up with your road sign maintenance and replacement and inspection, and then just really staying on top of that because of some liability issues that have came up across the state. And that kind of dovetails with this proposal. And you want to comment on that at any additionally, JR?
Yeah, this is came into play, I don't know, 3 months ago with some of our CAECO reps that comes around and talks to us about it. And of course, Jeff, with the safety issues that we've come about in the last few years, and this just goes hand in hand with the liability of road signs, curves, speed limits, all that stuff, the reflectivity of them, damaged signs, all that. So that's when I kind of got to thinking we could combine this, use an existing employee and say, hey, I want you to be in charge of this. And
so that would be under the other duties as assigned for this position. And then the other piece that we've talked about, like, what's a fair compensation to start with? Like this is most likely you're going to advertise it internally, hire internally, but it would be, a median adjustment. And we've talked about adjusting the median $1 for this position, and this position would still be an equipment operator as well,
yes,
most likely, or whatever, 2 or whatever it is. So that's about a 4% adjustment thereabouts. So, what questions does anyone else have, and do you have anything else you want to share, JR? I think it's a,
So the person who would be taking this, if I'm looking at it as a stipend right off the bat, it would just be a 4% increase to take on quite a bit of leadership.
Added responsibility and
It's not very much.
well, that was a starting point conversation. I didn't want to come in high. I didn't want to come in high. You can always.
If you take 4%, you're asking somebody to do a heck of a lot more and be responsible, especially in the safety world.
I was going to ask JR about where we're at on the federal mandate for retroreflectivity.
we started working on that back in probably 2016, 17, and probably 95% of our signs are high reflectivity.
Okay.
Engineers grade, taller lettering and everything. We've been complying, but there's never been any mandate. It says this date is the cutoff.
Yeah.
And
But
and
we
I
are
do-
complying.
do want to add as well that earlier in the week, we did a meeting, Jeff, JR, Jared, we met with some folks from the Bluegrass Ad, and if we're removed as a training provider and we had to go to BCTC or
And we're still active as we speak.
We're still
So
active.
I've sent them 2 emails, pleading with them to
Yeah.
please keep us on there, that we're a low-volume training provider, and
well,
so hopefully that'll all work.
yeah, hopefully we can remain. But if we had to go to BCTC, is the figure that was shared that we could get from reimbursed from Bluegrass Ad from that job training grant monies $6,000 per employee? And Jeff and JR, is that?
Yes.
Yeah, 6,000 is the max, but what they were talking about is the normal figures is $4,800 or $5,200 is the most it would cost for us, a person to be trained for a CDL license, so that's well under that $6,000 number.
So I just want to share with you all that we've done some homework, and Jared connected us with some folks from Bluegrass Ad, and then we all met. And that is something that's kind of like a backup for us if we have to go there. So it's not going to be like a added budgetary, right now it wouldn't be an added budgetary expense.
But the kind of the topic that started all this was, having this supervisor, whatever we're calling him, right? This coordinator, handle all the CDL stuff, getting all that plugged in.
Yes.
And then it looks like maybe even, getting into more and more buckets that he's going to be carrying, to help with leadership. Is that, plus he's also probably going to be on a truck like you and everybody else.
Absolutely.
And doing whatever. So I don't know, 4% just doesn't seem like,
As I said, I didn't want to come in high. So
I get it. I when you first said $1, I was like, well, that's a nice little bump, but.
$2,000 a year.
Yeah.
So you take taxes out, you're getting an extra $100 a month.
Right, to have your neck on the line.
I'm with Wayne. I would think that we need to look at a higher amount to keep somebody interested in doing a good job and want to do it.
Not burn out and
Right.
be out all night like JR probably
do you all want
is
to,
all the time anyway. But
like, this is the pleasure of the court. And
what do you think,
Well,
Jeff?
let me propose this, that, JR and I still haven't fleshed out exactly what we're going to expect of this person. As a matter of fact, that's what I was doing during some of the meeting here, was just going through a list of duties and things. Let JR and I put down on paper exactly what is going to be expected of this.
That would help,
additional
yeah.
responsibilities for this position. And then maybe between now and the next meeting, we could finalize that.
I'd like to try to finalize it like by Tuesday or so, and then share that with the court and have a couple options that we could consider next Friday at the meeting.
And we got some drafts of what this would include.
And we shared
Yes.
a rough outline of what, but I don't disagree that, this person, and what JR shared with me was this person would probably be working a couple days a week primarily
Maybe max.
on this work,
Out of the fund.
and such, so we'll do that. We'll bring it back. It's something I think I support, and we'll bring a couple options back to ask for you all to consider next Friday. Does anybody else want anything else?
Just a comment, I guess. So you're just wanting to do this with somebody that's already on
Existing,
staff?
yes. No new hire.
Right. Well, I get that, but I mean, I actually think this is a big deal. It's probably been needed for a while for you to have
It
that,
has.
for you to have that help. I'm just thinking that we're in the middle of starting the snow season. I just think it puts another burden, and it's going to be an opportunity, maybe pretty soon, that we need another staff member that's not involved. And I know you're going to pull the guy and say, hey, you're not fooling with that today. We're plowing snow, right? If that comes. I'm just saying that just.
No, I see what you're going.
Not only the money aspect of
Yeah.
When you put more burden on, you need to reward them financially. I agree with that. But I'm seeing it's just we've been in this struggle, and sometimes even recently. I mean, how are you staff wise now? Are you
We're
staffed
almost
out?
back to-
Or is there any vacancies?
No, we're full.
Okay.
Yeah.
It seems like recently you were looking for somebody or a couple of somebody.
We
maybe.
did. We were able to hire
Well,
some people.
that's my comment. I don't know how to put it, but I just see that may be coming pretty soon.
And I see what you're saying, because if you're going to ask this person to do, a lot more clerical, a lot more, cutting through the red tape stuff that you got to do, that does take them out of the truck or whatever for 2 days a week, that, maybe somebody that's not experienced and not know what, maybe eventually we look to hire somebody newer, younger, inexperienced, or, and bring them along.
That's the point.
Is that
I'm
what
trying
you're
to
thinking?
make. I didn't use that term.
But I think-
Yeah.
I think my-
Somebody being there already experienced.
And my thought process was we, discuss the need, establish it,
Sure.
and then if during the budget process we need to
Right.
adjust, we're trying to keep it a
That'd be here
minimal.
before you know it.
We're trying to keep it a minimal impact, and then if we needed to adjust in spring
Yeah.
on the budget process, then we could. But like when it snows, JR's team, they're all hands on deck, and
Right.
and that's the
Doesn't matter what the
priority.
job title is at that point. right?
Yeah,
I mean, everybody-
that's their priority, and that's why they are such. That's why they do such a good job.
Yeah, I agree. And that's why I was bringing it up, and I know we haven't got there yet, but reading through the emails for the discussion with the fire department we're getting ready to have, I'm just thinking about that they're trying to hit, the fire department, we're getting ready to have that discussion, but they're trying to hit 2 or 3 things, mainly to keep our unscheduled overtime down and fill these positions as they come, people retire, whatever. And I'm just thinking that same line for the road department. I mean, because they're just as essential as anybody, especially this time of year. And just thinking out loud,
Yeah.
kind of. So,
But we'll come back with more detailed job description, and then maybe a couple options higher than a 4% increase, and give you all options to consider, and then we can try to make a decision next Friday. But I think it's something that needs to be. I support it, and I think it's something that we need to navigate.
and I'm in favor of it. I'm
Yeah.
glad it's been brought up.
Yeah, minimal budget impact, but significant concentration on increasing safety and such. Anything else?
No, sir.
All right, anything else from anybody else? All right, thank you all.
Thank y'all.
That leads us to the next conversation, fire department request. So Chief Baker's here, Battalion Chief Rebel Oliver's here. I'll set the table and I'll let you all talk. They shared that we had a vacancy. We had 2 fantastic laterals apply. 2. And knowing that we have approved in the past the positions that were provisional in nature, knowing how those provisional positions really helped us through this process, and he's going to share some data about that. But to me, if you have 2 qualified laterals that don't need all of that training, 14 weeks, that can be on a truck in a minimum amount of time, and knowing that before March or so, we do have for sure a vacancy most likely coming, it makes sense to bring to you all, hey, do we go ahead and hire 2 laterals, one being provisional, just to be just to be out in front on it. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Judge. Like the judge said, in our last recruit hiring process, the court allowed us to hire 4 provisional firefighters. So essentially, we overhired by 4 people. Those guys went online July the 19th of this year. By November 15th, we have 1 vacancy. So with the creation of the fire marshal position, that took one of those provisionals. We had 3 folks retire, and then we just recently had a guy leave for medical reasons. So with that being said, we had 1 vacancy, and we had a lateral transfer hiring process. We brought these folks in and interviewed them. We've learned the hard way that we try to bring laterals in with folks that we know where they came from, we know the training they have. We're familiar with these guys, so we know what we're getting when we get them. It was 2 excellent interviews, and to be honest with you, it's very rare that you have 2 interviews that go as well as these lateral interviews went. So what we would like to request is, seeing how quickly those provisionals, we went through those guys through the recruit hiring process, can we have 1 provisional through the lateral process? Would be what we would ask.
What questions do you all have?
I just had, and I don't know if you can share this or not. Can you tell us what fire department they were at? Because I'm just kind of, as we're going through budget and getting ready to go on budget, we approve these pay, and I want to see who we're competing against and who we're taking from. But if you don't want to share,
I will say this: they came from.
Or you can tell me privately later.
We can talk, but they came from 2 larger city fire departments.
Okay.
And both these fellows will take a significant pay cut to come here.
Okay. All right.
And they, I guess, for what they've heard through the grapevine with the Scott County Fire Department, they're interested in coming here.
That's a good thing.
Yes, that's a good thing.
So I would recommend next Friday approving the hiring of 2 laterals, 1 being provisional, and then navigate forward.
And again, we have several folks that are eligible to retire now. We have several folks that will be eligible to retire in the coming year. We have one we're 99% sure he's going to retire in March. So again, looking at this, it may be a couple months where we have it with it.
But Rebel, bringing on 2 laterals, you got to do onboarding and training.
Yes.
But it's not the extensive.
Yeah, they are already both EMT qualified, so we don't have to worry about that process. And instead of a 14 weeks, we'll probably 2 to 3 week process instead of the 14. And just to add to what Chief Baker was saying, if you all would not have had the vision earlier to do the provisionals, right now we'd be 5 short as we sit today.
As we stand today.
As we stand here today, we'd be 5 short instead of 1. So that shows you, the importance of this. That's why we're asking for it.
So,
I just want to make sure I understand the lateral and the provisional. We're going to hire, if we decide to, we're going to hire them both, right?
Both, yeah.
Yeah. And so when you're saying one of them is going to go fill a slot.
That's empty, correct, right now.
So the other guy, kind of like a floater, but he
would be assigned to a shift. Fully staffed, we have 17 firefighters per shift.
That's my question. Go ahead,
And
Chief. Thank you.
We'd have 1 shift with 18. So basically, we would have 1 heavy on 1 shift.
But that guy shows up at 2200, and if he needs to go to Station 4 or goes to, then
That's what I
and he's
thought.
filling that hole, and we're not using unscheduled overtime
Exactly.
on another.
Well, he put that in the email, so I was just clarifying that.
And also to point out that for the last couple of months, we've had 2 folks off on either injury or workers' comp. So even with these provisionals, we haven't seen the full benefit of those provisionals because we've had folks off hurt.
The number of shifts that I have 100% attendance it's a challenge. I mean, it's just life and it's reality.
Yeah.
And I think Jeff said that really 1 FTE is really like 0.91. So,
Well, that was
David Livingston.
Yeah, the provisional also will help with cutting down on overtime, correct?
Yes.
Well, absolutely, yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, because we still have to deal with, obviously, like everybody else, with vacation, with sick time, stuff like that. So any given day, that might not be a provisional. That might be somebody on the truck that's just filling the spot, but we don't have somebody there for that.
And when I say provisional, what I'm saying is we're not adding their full-time staff number. We're just going over one for a provisional vacancy in the future.
In reality, they're going to disappear as being part, they're going to
Right.
fill a staff position.
Right.
and
Well,
open.
I mean, to put it in perspective, just like Chief Baker said, I mean, they know definitely a person's retiring at the end of the March. At a minimum, this person will be covering a slot by the end of March. So the most that they'll be here, maybe with not filling a spot, is maybe 8 weeks at the most. Assuming that there's nobody else has an injury or anything.
But between now and March, we'll need them every day. And I mean, it's not, I mean, it's just reality.
Is it time to have another recruit class?
Well,
You got one scheduled.
If it pleases the court, we can start that today.
We can't vote today.
I mean, realistically, we're looking March or April before we actually start the process. And that's by the time you advertise, let it go for 2 months, bring these guys in, interview them, test them.
That puts it right back.
6,
It's a
7 months.
process.
It's a process. So there's 6 or 7 months worth of recruit class.
And
hiring process.
that's the 14-week type deal,
That's
right?
14.
When you bring them in for the very beginning.
all right. Thank you all. Appreciate you. There was a structure fire in Sadieville yesterday. No injuries, and our staff but the house was pretty well involved.
It was. We had some issues with some access to it, gaining access through some wet concrete, but our crews did what they were supposed to do and fought the fire and got out, and nobody got hurt, so.
That's
Oh,
good.
yeah. We see some footprints in the concrete.
Yeah, there's some footprints in wet concrete.
Oh, Lord. I thought you were talking about like wet as in moisture, but you're talking about freshly poured.
Freshly poured concrete. Freshly poured concrete. Between our trucks and the fire.
Why didn't you just drive on? It's not that deep.
So we'll go next. We'll go next with the request from our colleagues at Georgetown Police Department for EMS staff to participate in our SRT medic. Chris, do you want to come forward, and our colleague from GPD's here?
Morning, Judge, Magistrates. Yes, so the Georgetown Police Department has requested that we allow a couple of our medics to be on their special response team, and Officer Crump and Paramedic Hobbs are here to answer the questions. They're much more familiar with that program, but I think just from a safety standpoint, it would be ideal to have a paramedic on the scene, right in the stack, in case you have an injured officer or civilian. So.
And I shared this document with you all, and I think in your email that I shared, you wanted to make sure that we understood that no EMT or EMS staff would be carrying any weapon or such at any time.
Right, correct.
What about bulletproof vest or shields? I mean, is that going to be something that's associated with?
Correct. We will have a kit. It'll be a bulletproof vest along with a ballistics helmet and everything. We'll also be carrying a med pouch that will have certain things that we need in the event something was to happen.
Any questions? What other questions? Kelly Corman.
So for Chris, I guess with our current staffing challenges we've talked about a lot lately, how does this affect that?
Yeah. So the training stuff would be when they're off duty, right? And then the call-outs, there's 3 of you that have qualified?
Two provisionary, 2 qualified.
So what would the scenario look like if you're on duty?
Yeah, so we're on opposite shifts. So if I was on duty for that day, then the other medic would be the one that responded. If he was on duty, then I would be the one that responded. So that way it doesn't.
understand.
The off-duty person goes.
Yeah.
But that's going to give the off-duty person overtime or additional.
Yeah.
I mean,
You're talking once every, how often?
Right.
You have your high tide and low tide, I don't want to.
Right, but-
yeah, no, I guess that's my
Historically,
question.
though.
Yeah, how much time do you think that takes up?
Right. So,
10, 12 times a year?
Essentially, yeah, and that could be, 6, 7 hours a month, or less, honestly. It's not a huge.
So it's not.
I think it's a minimal.
Something that they're committing to 20 hours a month to go right around and just as needed.
No, it's when you have a critical event incident, and then you have to call out that team, right?
Yeah, essentially, they would be on call just like the team members would. Not all the team members are on shift at a time. We have 12 of us right now. We've lost one. So they would be on call, subject to call. We pick up the call, say, hey, we need the team. We'll come in, and they would come with us.
Now, the other piece of this is like just thinking about Lyle Road where that incident happened not too long ago. Sheriff's Office, I don't know if they led, I believe they led that event, but their team was out. Would you all go with the Sheriff's Office?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
The SR team is together, right?
So,
Is it the?
We're not together. Historically, we were.
But in
and then at some
practice,
point,
you're oftentimes
they broke apart.
we separated the two teams. They're their own teams right now. But we do interact and support each other as best we can. It's exactly, those are good examples. The Lyle Road, they had a lot going on. So they activated our team for that, and we came out and assisted with it with our assets. And they would be one of our assets. So that would be an incident.
And we've spoken with the sheriff's office or the sheriff and asked him, told him what the plan was for Georgetown. And he advised me they have a paramedic on their staff that's part of their
And so he's got it covered and such. So that's good. David Livingston.
In these kind of scenarios, EMS is typically on site anyway, is that correct?
Correct. So,
Off-site, though.
yeah, we
This does get closer.
currently out would
Well,
go.
you know what I mean, not specifically on site, but
Right.
in available within the range of, as needed.
Well, so how it works currently is we will stage about a half mile from the scene, safe distance. If we were called, you're looking at 2-3 minutes to get up to the individual. And then, of course, if you have someone that's shot, 3 minutes is the bleed out time. So it could potentially make a huge difference having somebody right there on the scene.
And it's not just, an individual, was to get shot, then immediately that clock starts and EMS is rolling in. The threat still needs to be mitigated. The scene has to be safe in order for medics to get into the hot zone. So with us being in the stack with them, as soon as that happens, we're able to start treating that patient while they're still mitigating a threat and then getting that patient out to the safe zone where EMS can transfer.
I think it's a no-brainer, but I mean, it does put you at risk. I mean, that's the
But
drawback.
He's expendable.
Wow.
Maybe the other person is.
All right, we're going to move on. If there are no other questions, it does sound like something that would be worthwhile of supporting our colleagues at GPD and appreciate you all coming.
Thank you.
All right. Next would be discussion about EMS, part-time paramedic, and EMT pay. And Jeff is going to lead this conversation. And Chris, I'll ask Chris and Natalie to add any comments as well.
Yeah,
But the whole thing is we're trying to make sure we keep 6 apparatus on the road at all times, and that our staff is not burnt out, that our staff is got rest, and that the thought process is that could we look at part-time staffing to bolster those numbers of full-time staff? And there's some challenges with that, so I'll let you go, Jeff.
Sure. So right now we have 5 part-time EMTs and 5 part-time paramedics. As you know, in the last meeting, we presented 1 paramedic on a part-time basis and 3 EMTs. It's typically easier to find EMTs than it is paramedics. Obviously, that's no different than it is for full-time positions. So what we are recommending is just some adjustments to our part-time rates for both the EMT and paramedic position in an effort to enhance our recruitment and retention efforts. Right now, we're currently paying $12.77 an hour for a part-time EMT, $14.50 for an advanced EMT, and part-time paramedic is at $17.69. What we're proposing is to increase those to $14 an hour for the part-time EMT, $16 an hour for the part-time advanced EMT, and $20 for a part-time part-time paramedic, excuse me. As you can see, I gave you a list. I indicated how much that dollar increase is and what the percentage increase is. We feel like this would be a significant step in the right direction. And then what we can do is, after we've done this, see if it has a positive impact on our recruitment and retention efforts. So, and we'll present this more formally at the meeting next Friday, but just wanted to open it up for discussion and see what you thought.
Questions or comments?
Here's my question. I'm fearful, and this is the reason why it has been the protocol to not have part-time pay above full-time pay. And because there is the belief, or at least my belief, there is a chance that that could hurt morale. Now, I don't know, but I know we hire people from EMS every month, it seems like, every meeting, and we're still having the struggle. But on the flip side is if you start hiring people who are getting paid more than our full-time folks, and I know the overall package with pension and health insurance, we're paying them, they're cost us a lot more. They don't see it that way. They just see what comes on the check, twice every 2 weeks. But that's my concern, is the morale issue that we would have by having part-time people get paid more than full-time.
Well, let me clarify one thing. I'm not recommending a higher pay for part-time EMT or part-time advanced EMT above what our current people make. The only place where I'm recommending a higher pay rate is paramedic.
Yeah, I know, and they're hard to find. I get it.
But that's
you're
right.
But that's my concern.
It's my concern too. I share that concern.
Okay.
Sure.
Have you all got any feedback from full-time staff?
Yes, and we polled our people, we sent a survey out, and overwhelmingly responses, we'd rather have the help, even though they're making more money.
That helps.
Yeah.
And just that piece right there, that you've communicated with our staff and you've gotten feedback.
Yes.
That makes me feel better.
That helps a lot to me.
Absolutely, and it's, unfortunately, we do have 5, but it's hard to get them to pick up even because of the rate, unfortunately, and it's not comparable to other agencies that are strictly EMS. We don't tie in the fire and EMS agencies. They look very differently, right? But strictly EMS agencies, there's quite a big difference. So getting quality people to apply and then pick up. So yeah, we have those 5, but out of them, they don't pick up very often.
If we could get to 10 to 12 part-time, that picked up just a shift every couple weeks,
right.
That helps us.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of the vision of,
that's
kind of the vision of doing this.
Yes.
Yeah, and it brings us to the minimum pay rate of, we polled all the counties around us, the lowest paying part-time is 20. The average was like 23. So this will at least
You
make
shared
us
like Woodford
competitive.
County pays
29.
For part-time people?
Paramedic, yes.
Yeah.
and that's probably a reflection of their difficulty of keeping them there. But you all, like if you all are asking the court, you're asking the court to consider this because you think it will positively impact the service.
Correct. Yes.
So just
Rick
back-
Hostetler.
Just back to Chad's comment, which I agree with, but we discussed it. So you polled all of your staff?
Yes.
And,
Yes.
get any negative feedback?
No.
None.
It was a resounding please. We need the help.
Okay.
Fill our ambulances, keep 6 ambulances for this community.
Yeah.
Correct.
That's the data we needed, or at least I needed.
All right.
Exactly.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Anything else from you? Anything else from any magistrate or anyone else here with us? I will say that JR and I will be on December 8th at the Extension office at the groundbreaking. All of you all are invited. That's exciting. 1 o'clock at the Extension office on December 8th. Tomorrow, anybody's welcome to get on a fire truck or the road department snow plow.
Dump truck?
No, it's a snow plow, and
ride on the plow?
JR's going to have a Santa hat on and some hay bales in the back, and anybody can get on there. That's where I'll be tomorrow with JR, and anybody, Cam, I think you're going to jump on. So anybody else is welcome.
What time's that?
He's not going to pull the dump lever, is he?
No, or start the salt spreader. JR, does that start at 6?
I think the parade starts at 6.
Okay.
6. Yeah, and the Grinch has been messing around out here. JR, the lights have been off. Have you seen the Grinch running around? Yeah, the Grinch has been running around. The lights have been messed up. So so Lori and tourism's chasing the Grinch around. hopefully Santa can show up and get the lights on. Save the day. With that said, then, we're going to call it a day, and tonight is the Chamber Awards Banquet. That starts at 6, I believe, at Hilton Garden Inn. So if there's nothing else, y'all be careful and stay warm. Thank you.